The CEO Hour with Dean Akers. The mission? To help CEOs and startups succeed in today's marketplace. Entrepreneur or established CEOs, is your business growing? Where is your business going? Let's talk about it with your host, Dean Akers.
Welcome to the CEO Hour. I'm your host, Dean Akers. Thanks for joining us each week as we bring top CEOs and entrepreneurs who share their journeys. And this includes their thoughts and ideas that have helped them in their success, and also things they've learned not to do again along the way. Today, I'd like to welcome Brenda Dohring Hicks, the CEO of Real Wild Software and the Dohring Group. Welcome, Brenda.
Thanks, Dean.
Well, Brenda, our listeners love hearing your journeys, or your journey in this case. And so I love starting the journey back in September. Well, it was in Detroit, right?
Yep.
In September of 21st-ish, 1954. And a beautiful fall day, I'm assuming.
Yeah, maybe in Detroit, still in September, or there could have been snow.
Yeah, it could have been. So let's start the journey there. So did you grow up in Detroit?
I did. I grew up actually in a town about 10 miles outside. I don't know if you know much about Detroit, but, when Henry Ford did it, he built it like a wheel. So he named he put all the mile roads a mile out, as the spokes. And so I was at 10 Mile, which was a little town called Royal Oak. And my grandmother had been there. My grandfather had been there. I went to the same high school that my mother had gone to. I think I even had one of the same teachers she had.
So you grew up in Detroit back in the 50s. That was boom time then, wasn't it?
It was certainly boomtown in the music industry. Motown was huge. We used to go downtown when it was first coming out, so the Temptations were there. Stevie Wonder played at a high school. So from that perspective, you're a kid. I don't know that I paid much attention to what was booming or wasn't booming. We were pretty middle class, so long as we were having a good time and making it through, we seemed like everything was cool.
Well, Motown started there, and people don't realize how big that brand became. Maybe our listeners do today. Is Motown still around as a brand?
I think that there is, probably just with older people. Now we just call it soul, soul music. But all those same songs still get played over and over and over again. One of my claims to fame was my brother was in the boys' club choir, and I got a crush on this young boy. I was probably in 4th grade, and I needed glasses. So I'd be sitting in the back watching the concert, the boys' club choir, and there was the dreamy of my life sitting out, up there singing. And I could always have to find him. The reason I tell you he needed glasses, the only reason I could see him was the way he opened his mouth wider than any other boy in the entire choir. And I was like, oh, there he is. You know who it was?
No.
Glenn Fry of the Eagles.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, music was there.
How epic is that?
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Have you ever gone to see the Eagles since?
Gosh, when I first moved to Florida, there was a concert down in South Florida, and I think they ended up settling down there. I'm not exactly sure, but my brother is 4 years older than I was. He was better friends, obviously, with Glenn, and so I probably lost track of him in my early 20s.
Yeah, Detroit was certainly known for music. I met a woman by the name of Suzanne DePass that was on a board with me a number of years ago when she lived in Hollywood, and when I met her, I went out just to meet her, and she was Berry Gordy's partner founding Motown.
Okay.
And her claim to fame was, and I didn't know her until I sat in her office and saw her Grammys, Oscars, and everything. She founded the Jackson 5.
Whoa.
Yeah, so
Whoa.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Got to hear a lot about that. So now your love of music, you're in junior high school, arts and stuff. Tell me what happens.
Yeah, I really, did I love arts and music back then? Not so much. I was more of a nerd. I read a lot. 4th grade, one of my claims to fame was we had a contest over the summer, who could read the most books. And you got a body part of an inchworm or something, a caterpillar, something cuter than an inchworm, I guess. And so I would go to the library every single week and take out 5 books, which was the maximum they would let me take, read those 5 and go do it again the next week. So I was consuming 5 books a week on a regular basis. It's just kind of, what I did. So I was much more nerdy.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What created that thirst? Was it a thirst for knowledge or what?
I think it was a thirst for stories. It wasn't like I was reading technical books or anything, but I loved the stories, and I think I could create a really cool little world around all of these stories. And I guess, my parents told me I was always just very, very curious. So I always wanted to know something and more. So that's where I guess it happened, and I never gave it up. I still like, reading tremendously.
Reading's a great attribute to have.
Yeah, I think it was years later that I even realized, oh yeah, I guess I picked that up when I was very, very young. Today, what do we all do with our kids? I did it with mine. Oh, I'm going to start reading to them from the beginning. We know it's a great attribute. We know we should do that. But I'm not so sure. I mean, you can introduce books to children. I can tell you my parents never introduced books to me. I would give that credit to my fourth grade teacher for having that caterpillar-y thing and for taking an interest in me and knowing that something was sparking there. So she gets full credit for my reading.
Have you ever tracked her down?
That's a great question. I was just thinking about it as I was relating that story to you. I haven't even thought of her name in years. Her name is Mrs. Hunter. And, she was definitely one of those inspirations in my life.
Boy, I mean, that would be epic to...
It would be.
Google her. Now you can Google and you can find anybody.
Yep, that would be interesting. Well, it was funny. My parents got divorced when I was very young. And my mom remarried when I was in kindergarten. And it wasn't until third grade that my father was able to officially adopt us. And I was never so excited in my whole life as to learn my new last name and be able to write it in cursive. So that was in third grade. So, that was a positive part of that. And I can write LaFevers was my new name. And to be able to write that in cursive was like another one of those defining moments.
So when he adopted you, so is that how your last name was Brenda Dohring? Or what was your maiden name?
My mother's maiden name was Clemens.
Clemens?
Right. She got married, and then my name became Searles.
Searles.
Yes. Searls. E-S. And so I was Brenda, Searles for the first 8 years of my life. And then, back then it was kind of different how the laws were with divorce and things like that. And so he was not able to legally adopt us, my brother and I, for a number of years. But it was in third grade. And I couldn't, I loved the man already. He was my dad, but it was really a cool thing to learn how to write in cursive and write my new name, and I was quite proud.
And that new name
Brenda
was?
LaFevers.
What was it?
LaFevers.
LaFevers?
Yeah, L-A, capital F-E-V-E-R-S. Very French.
We have a gentleman here locally. Owen, is that the same?
Oh, that's Owen LaFave.
Oh,
yes.
yeah. So it's not
LaFave.
It's not exactly the same.
No.
Wow.
And the funny part of that, I say it's very French. My stepfather was from a tiny, tiny little town called Piggott, Arkansas. How in the world they had the name LaFevers, to this day I don't have any clue. Never did that history. I don't go backwards very well. I don't do Ancestry.com and all that sort of stuff. But happened then. Every so often a fun memory pops out.
Yeah, you can't. So now you're getting ready to graduate. Did you graduate from high school?
I did graduate from high school. Got into high school. Actually got married, however, in my senior year of high school. And so that was kind of interesting. Graduated at the top of my class. I was the editor of the yearbook. That was not an easy graduation to do. We moved about 16 miles away from my high school. And so driving into school, sometimes I just didn't want to. But I was kind of a brat. So if somebody said something to me like, hey, Brenda, where were you yesterday? And I go, yeah, I just didn't feel like driving 16 miles to get into school. What do you want? A note from my husband?
That had to be pretty... Back in that era, that was pretty out there, right?
It was definitely out there. They didn't know what to do with that because I got all A's. I was a great student, and but you got, I get it. You got to have rules. They had to have attendance rules, and somehow they just didn't apply to me when I was married.
That is epic. That's priceless. I can't
Says
even
a lot
imagine.
about me.
I can't even imagine. No, it really does. Do I believe in rules? Yeah, is there a gray area in the rule?
Yeah, gray.
Well, I tell you what, when we come back into segment 2, we're gonna hear back from Brenda, who was able to skip school because she was able to pull the wife card on her teachers. I think that's epic, and I've known you for a long time. That's why you asked me earlier why I do this show.
Yeah.
You just found the reason I do this show is I get to meet cool people like you, but I get to really peel the onion back and really start to see what sets up your DNA. And having known you a long time, now I'm getting a much clearer vision of the DNA. So when we come back into segment 2, we're going to be picking back up with Brenda Dohring Hicks as she's able to bust her high school teachers on her excuse card of signing for herself as the mom of her own self as the wife. This is great. It's priceless. So again, I'm your host, Dean Akers of the CEO Hour, bringing you another priceless show with Brenda Dohring Hicks, and we'll see you right after the break.
The CEO Hour with your host, Dean Akers. Connect with Dean at deanakers.com. We'll be right back.
So, you're a tech startup. You're working hard, trying to make it happen with big ideas, big dreams, and a small budget. You need to connect with people in the same boat. Now is the time to join the early stage startup group, the Innovation Center, an incubator for early stage tech firms. You can find them at tbinnovates.com. Now operating for over 14 years, the Innovation Center is a regional, national, and internationally known success story, continuing to generate momentum in Pinellas County. Twice, the Innovation Center has won the Tampa Bay Technology Forum's Excellence in Service Award and has been recognized by Entrepreneur.com as a top 10 international business incubator. And now, Tech Garage, a technology and entrepreneurship center, has joined forces with the Innovation Center to provide a co-working program in downtown St. Petersburg. Connect with the startup community. Connect with the Innovation Center. Go to tbinnovates.com. That's tbinnovates.com. And tell them the Adjunct CEO sent you.
If you're a CEO or organizational leader looking to expand your business, join the CEO Council, where you'll meet and exchange ideas with fellow CEOs without the pressures of a sales network environment. You can join today by sending an email to application@adjunctceo.com. The CEO Council is comprised of over 220 fantastic local business leaders you'll be able to learn from because they walk in your shoes every day. When you become a member of the CEO Council, you'll have an opportunity to build trusted relationships during the roundtable meetings, share your triumphs, vet ideas, and work through business challenges with peers who can provide real-world business solutions. The CEO Council offers opportunities to hear from world-renowned speakers that inspire ideas to help members grow as both leaders and individuals. Join the CEO Council. Request your CEO Council membership application today at adjunctceo.com or by sending email to application@adjunctceo.com. That's application@adjunctceo.com.
Helping your business succeed in today's marketplace. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.
Well, welcome back to segment 2 of the CEO Hour. I'm your host, Dean Akers, again bringing you top CEOs and entrepreneurs each week that share their journeys. This week we have Brenda Dohring Hicks, and in the first segment she was sharing her childhood journey, which quite frankly was really pretty interesting. And I'm a believer that when we have the folks on the show, when they really reveal their childhood and then as they grow, you start to see these patterns and you see independence, you see people that are willing to take risk. And I would say if Brenda, you were certainly a risk taker earlier in your life, right?
Now that I look back on it, yes. You don't think about it, you're just doing what happens.
Well, it is, but you took risk. You took risk in relationship. You took risk in reading, believe it or not, probably at that time. And so you're a senior in high school. You're making your way through that, and you are now married in high school, which is cool. And so was high school like just kind of like over it? And what happens now?
Yeah, I was definitely over it. Because, I had done the rest of it. You do the your friends, you do the proms, you do the football games, you do all of that stuff. And but once I got married, I had obligations, I felt.
Right.
Certainly I wanted to graduate. That was really important to me. Didn't have any dream set of college. But, Dean, I am just old enough that I would say easily more than a quarter of all, probably 50% of all the girls that I knew in my high school graduating class looked forward to getting married within a year of graduation, So it was, I finished, I had a great time, and then I just set out. My ex-husband was in the restaurant business when I met him. And so I, worked with him in the restaurants. I did a lot of the back office, handled all the payroll, did what I could there, worked with the accountants and things. But I also slung a mean pizza. So I can spin some pizza in the air if you ask me to. If I lost everything I have today, I would go work in a restaurant. I love waiting tables. I love talking to the people. I just think it's an incredibly fun industry, and you can make a lot of money.
Yeah. So, we had Chris Sullivan on the show, obviously.
Yeah.
And his journey was similar to this in the fact that I had always thought this, and he shared about how he was in his parents wanted him to go to the Naval Academy.
Okay.
And he had a full ride to the Naval Academy. He went to the University of Kentucky and started bussing tables at Steak and Ales so he could put his way through college. And obviously, you know that story.
Yep.
But yeah, the restaurant industry can be a great industry. So now you're in the restaurant industry in Detroit or in a suburb of Detroit. How does that go, and what brings you to Tampa, Florida, or when did that transition happen?
So I'd been married about 3 years. I was pregnant with my first son, about 9 months pregnant, as a matter of fact, as I recall. And my husband came home. And we were a franchise up there. Dino's Pizza started the same time frame as Domino's did. So they were our competitors. And he came home and said, hey, John, who had started the franchise, president, asked him, did he want to open up a 140-seat restaurant in Tampa, Florida? He says, I'd like to do it. And I said, okay, whatever. And so that's what we did. The only question I had is, where is Tampa, Florida?
Wow.
I had no idea. I'd heard of Orlando, but if you think about it, even Disney was just coming into play back then. Yeah. So fortunately, he had another one of his friends in the restaurant business who was also going to open up a store down here. It's a restaurant, but in Orlando. So we weren't totally alone coming down, but I moved down here when my son, he was born in the Detroit area, but he was 6 weeks old when I moved down here. And not knowing anybody, not having babysitters, not knowing what to do, Josh always likes to tell the story that he grew up in a cheese box.
Wow.
So what that means is the big blocks of mozzarella cheese that come delivered, I would use one of those, throw a blanket in the bottom of it, and he would sleep in the back room in a cheese box.
Wow, that had to be, for a young person to... Probably even for your husband at the time, your first husband, that had to be a pretty gutsy choice or decision to pack up your home in Detroit where you grew up and move, to your point, a place you never heard of, to Tampa, Florida, which that had to be what, in the late 70s?
Yes, that was, it was in the mid 70s. And now he also, his brother, who was more of an engineer type, he talked him and his wife, who we were good friends with, into moving down. And they had a little boy at the time that was 3. So we actually lived with them for probably about 6 months as everybody was getting, settled in, and off we went. But, when you're young, that restaurant business is fun. Everybody is working in it is young. Everything is fun. So I enjoyed it as I went into my 20s.
With a lot of the folks we've had on this show, would you share that it's a great experience for somebody if they're in college or something to actually work as a waiter, waitress, or be in the restaurant industry to learn that kind of energy?
Absolutely, hands down. I can't think of a better thing for someone to do. I'm scared because if you get somebody that's young and in college and they, and their parents want them to, or they think they should go, work in some office, be part of some, it is so boring in the beginning to do those things. So it's harder. So maybe those people find their energy and their life work outside of that kind of a thing. But, to find something that you're passionate about. And so for me, was I passionate about the restaurant business? Well, yeah, because it was mine.
Right.
It was our restaurants. We had, we could dream about, let's open another one, let's do another one. And, we enjoyed the people, so our passion grew into that. But at the same time, I had always wanted to learn how to tap dance. I wanted to be a dancer. And because of the hours, it afforded me an opportunity, and now we were making more money. So, at the ripe age of 21, 22, I started taking dance classes.
Really? Here in Tampa?
Here in Tampa.
Did you was it just a recreational thing, or did you?
It was, but I did it so much and I was so passionate about it that I ended up teaching for them, which was really cool. And I did that until, for a number of years. Tap was still my favorite, loved it. But Bobby and Sandy Carl have a studio here in Tampa called Carl and DeMarco. And Bobby, I was enthralled with him because he was in like the original Little Abner, West Side Story, and he had such a great, story, and tap was his favorite. And then his wife had been with the Royal Ballet. So they were just amazing. And so when they said, hey, Brenda, start teaching a little bit, it was like a dream come true for me.
So they saw your passion.
Apparently.
And did they help you?
Yeah, they helped me. They gave me an opportunity to do it. I started USF for the same reason, to kind of, get better at that. Remember, got to read 5 books. Now, if I'm going to do something, I'm all in. I'm going to teach. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I purely loved it. I loved the children. I loved teaching them. They were my kids. I would never miss a day or an hour because I loved them. Now, I did do something a little odd. I took my son over to Circus World. Do you remember when Circus World?
Oh, yeah.
So I take him over to Circus World. We're in the audience, my mom, myself, and little Josh, and he's probably 6 years old. And they asked for volunteers to fly on the trapeze. So of course I have to raise my hand because I also like to do crazy things. So they let me fly on the trapeze, and then afterwards they asked me, did I want a job?
Oh, really?
A job. Mm-hmm. So I talked to them a little bit about it, and they said, we lost our female from our troupe, and we could really use and you look like you were comfortable up there. Would you like to come over and train? So I went home, and I asked my husband, was it okay if I ran away and joined the circus? And, he's like, well, what would that entail? How long would you have to be gone? What would it look like? And we had that conversation. Got approval there, and then I went to my bosses, and same thing to them. Can I run away and join the circus? We joked about it, but they gave me permission as well. And so I went over to explore it, and I will just say one thing: the glitz out front is beautiful. The glitz behind those curtains, not so beautiful. And I went there. I talked to them. They told me that in order to be covered on their insurance to be able to fly the trapeze, I would have to first train as a rope ballerina. You know what that is, right? You hang from your teeth. You climb up the long rope, you hang from your teeth, and you spin around. And so they sent me over to go watch the rope ballerinas to make certain it was something I could do while I was training to become a trapezist. And long story short, the girl that I guess I was replacing that I didn't know I was replacing confronted me, and I never went back.
So she didn't encourage you?
She definitely did not encourage me. And so I ran back to Tampa and didn't go back to the circus.
Brenda, I got to tell you, this is epic. So when we come back into segment 3, we're going to talk about how you've gone from trapeze. This is epic. To my listeners out there, this is a message. This is a message to be passionate and follow your heart, really. And when we come back into segment 3, we're going to talk more to Brenda about how she avoided joining the circus. I feel kind of disappointed now. I would have known somebody in the circus. That would have been something. But at any rate, I'm Dean Akers, your host again for the CEO Hour, bringing you top CEOs and entrepreneurs every week. And I also want to remind you that that free offer for the CEO Physical can be, all you got to do is reach out at help@adjunctceo.com, and we send that out every week to folks, and that's help@adjunctceo.com. And so we'll be back in segment 3 with Miss Hicks as she decides not to join the circus.
helping established CEOs and entrepreneurs. Connect with Dean at deanakers.com. The CEO Hour continues in a moment. Helping to navigate today's marketplace for startups and mainstays. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.
Well, welcome to the CEO Hour. This is segment 3, and I'm your host, Dean Akers, bringing you top CEOs and entrepreneurs each week who share their journey. This includes their thoughts and ideas that have helped them in their success and things they've learned not to do again. When we went into the break after segment 2, and Brenda and I were visiting during the break, and we were talking about how her passion to join the circus in Orlando got wavered by her introduction. And so now, Brenda, I'm I know we have decided the big top was not for you.
Big top was not for me.
So now you came back to the real circus, the circus of life,
yeah,
right?
Circus of life, exactly.
So tell us, you come back, and you tell your husband and all your friends that you've what?
That I decided not to join the circus. I don't like confrontation. I don't want to make anybody upset or angry, and it just was not going to be for me. That wasn't
Were they
what I
happy
expected.
about it, or were they really hoping that you'd be able to get them free tickets to the circus one day?
Probably free tickets, but I don't know if they're happy or unhappy. It was just, if that's what I was going to do, they kind of knew I would probably figure out a way to do what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do now was come back. And then this wasn't the happiest time in my life after this, right, because I ended up feeling like my marriage was not going to last any longer. By this time, I wanted to save it, though. So I did that thing that sometimes people do and have another baby. So you kind of think like, maybe that's it. I'd put off having, another child, even though I always knew I wanted one, because my career got in the way. It was hard to do all the things I was doing and slow down enough to have a baby. So got pregnant with my darling daughter, Abby. And so it went okay, but it wasn't meant to be. The marriage was going to fail. So I knew it was going to, and then I decided that it was time to do something where I could be independent and have a lifestyle that I wanted. And so I had to make money. You don't make money teaching dance.
No.
You don't make money in the circus. And the restaurants, in my mind, my husband needed those. So I had to figure out something else to do. Fortunately, I lived next door to a division president for U.S. Home. And I was telling Gus that, I needed to do something. He goes, I got an idea, Brenda. He goes, I know this guy who's an appraiser. And they make really good money. And he goes, I think I can get you a job there. So he did, got me a job. And I started out learning how to appraise houses. And I thought this was the coolest thing. Remember before I said offices were really boring? Well, at this stage of my life, I was ready for that boring office, and it was not boring to me at all. I was so excited to, have a whole new wardrobe to wear. I wasn't wearing tights and leotard every day and tap shoes. I carried a briefcase, and, the stars were in my eyes. Well, actually, dollar signs were in my eyes that I was going to make great money and have a great new career. And that happened. I put the exact same passion into that I'd done for other things. So there's a designation you can get to be an appraiser. It's called the MAI. And I worked on that. Sometimes it takes 5 to 10 years. I did it in under 5, about 4.5 years, doing all kinds of weird stuff, taking as many courses as I could, studying as fast as I could, learning as much as I could, and working as hard as I could. And so I left my first employer. There were some issues there that I didn't feel were strongly ethical, and I didn't understand why everybody else was staying there. Frankly, it was that bad. But there is a difference sometimes between the way a man feels he may be stuck somewhere, and a woman might feel she doesn't have to be stuck because maybe she doesn't have the same financial responsibilities. Whatever reason, my ethics won out, which was a great thing. I was asked to join another firm. By this point, I'm appraising office buildings, apartment complexes. Well, every so often they'd stick me with doing only subdivisions because that was girls' work. But I didn't mind it because, I did like seeing houses. I am a girl. So I did that for just a few years, and then I got antsy and wanted to have my own firm. I didn't want to work for anybody else anymore. I think I'd started out having our own restaurant. I don't think I was a good employee. And so I got with another woman who was a couple years older than I, had been in the business more, and we started a firm called Pearson Dohring. Started it up on Ehrlich Road, 1980 something. I told you don't ask me questions about exact years, and you're so kind you haven't. But I would say that was like in the mid 80s.
Yeah. So now you're in the appraisal industry.
Yep.
By the way, I gotta, if you were to go back and listen to every one of our shows, not to discount gender, but I would share with you that 90% of the people on this show, male and female, if I took gender out, have that same itch or that same moral compass or that same I can't work fors. It seems like there's a bug in this entrepreneur spirit that people have, that causes them to be able to take those risks.
Yeah.
And I would suggest to you, just listening to your journey, that was pretty indicative earlier in your life. You took a risk when you were in high school by getting married.
Right.
Would that be considered a big risk by most standards?
Yeah, probably, especially if you weren't pregnant.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's like,
just
what?
doing it.
Yeah. Then you took a risk with you and your husband coming 1,000 miles, 1,200 miles to Tampa, Florida to open a business. That, I got to believe, by most standards would be considered a risk.
I would agree.
Then I would say a bigger risk was to even contemplate to go to Orlando area to possibly join a circus. Would that be considered a risk?
Didn't feel like it at the time.
And that's my point. I think what happens is, and I'm putting words in your mouth, but as listening to your journey, and I think our listeners out there need to know that taking risk is part of the entrepreneur journey.
It's a huge part, it's just, but I think that more than the risk, because listen to what I said, I didn't think about the risk. What I think about is an outcome. What I think about is I get excited about something, and then I just got to go see it through. And so the risk part, quite frankly, doesn't play.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So you as an entrepreneur, you don't see the risk. Mm-mm. The other people overanalyze it. And I guess if you're out there listening and you're wanting to do something, would your message be don't overanalyze it?
Oh, my God. 100%. Mine would be just whatever you're feeling, try to listen to that. And if it makes you smile, if it makes you get out of bed and be happy your feet are on the floor, just go out and do it. Now, was I absolutely determined that it was time for me in my life to focus on money and doing something I liked? Yes, but it was easier for me to look at the money first and then just whatever it was I was going to do it, make sure I was having fun. Because you can make fun out of anything.
That's what I would agree with, and I guarantee you can make fun out of if you were trying to join a circus.
Well, I could have, but see, that didn't turn out so good because it wasn't going to be fun.
Yeah.
So I got the heck out of there.
So you're doing the appraisal business. You're and quite frankly, you're right. You were growing up in a male-dominated industry.
Oh, no doubt.
I mean, it
no
was,
doubt.
Yeah.
But I still had fun. Can I tell you a quick story?
Yeah.
So back in the day, when you got your designation, they used to pin you, right? So men and women would get a pin you wear on your lapel. Our chapter was so big, there were probably 600 people in the chapter. I was the second woman in the state of Florida to get an MAI. And so when I went to go get my pin, it was just so funny that there's just this room full of men and men and men and men. So I told my close friends what I was going to do is when I walked up there, I was going to take the pin and I was going to put it in my ear instead of on my lapel. I didn't, but I thought that would be kind of funny.
I think you should. In fact, I think you should do it today. Put your pin in your ear and take a picture and put it on Facebook. I think that's epic.
We could have.
So you and your partner started, for all intents and purposes, an all-female or a female practice.
It was definitely female. I took, back in the day, no offense to anybody, they were called secretaries. She left, took her secretary with her. I left, I took my secretary with me. We were all women. As a matter of fact, when we hired our first guy into the office, it made us really nervous because we couldn't do things like stop in the middle of the hallway and pull your pantyhose up or, talk about what color bra you were wearing or something like that. So we joked, this is so bad. When we hired our first guy, we were going to put a cat bell around his ankle so we could tell when he was coming, so we could behave. That was our deal. But we grew that firm to be, we had 38, 40 people.
Wow.
And it was interesting, when we would interview people, because we were known as the women on the north end of town. But we never had any difficulty hiring men. We had a nice firm, mostly, again, appraisers are still mostly men to this day.
Right.
I guess the deal was, they said that we were really tough. We wrote great appraisal reports and everybody made a lot of money. Okay.
That's a combination that works with any gender.
Exactly. It didn't matter. So it wasn't, am I going to work for a woman? It really was, well, why are you going to work for a woman? Because they have a great reputation. They're tough on you. They're going to make you write really good reports, but you'll make great money. And that was that.
That speaks volumes for your leadership and stuff. And so when we come back into the final segment 4, we're going to want to learn that journey that brings you into the software industry, because that's a big shift, and you've been a game changer there for sure. And I can't thank you enough for coming on, because of what you've shared with us on your journey. And I know our listeners out there love learning about people's journeys, and the fact that it's just not always a hockey stick up. And so, again, I'm your host, Dean Akers, host of the CEO Hour, each week bringing you top CEOs and entrepreneurs that share their journeys. And again, I want to remind you, too, this show will be on a podcast up on the CEO Hour podcast on all the Apple, Stitcher, and all those networks that you can listen to afterwards, as well as all of our other shows in case you miss it. And you'll also be able to listen if you're on LinkedIn, go to the Adjunct CEO, and you can click into them. And so, again, this is Dean Akers, and we'll be back to the final segment, bringing you Brenda Dohring Hicks.
Success never takes the weekend off. Connect with Dean at deanakers.com. The CEO Hour continues in a moment.
Growth begins by understanding where you are now. For a limited time, business growth experts at Adjunct CEO will provide a full CEO physical of your business valued at $10,000 for free. Email ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. This offer includes financial, marketing, and sales analysis and an outline to help you strategize future success. For your free CEO physical, email ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. Florida ranks high as a new hub for business growth and innovation. Startups, restarts, and starting over are all part of the new vitality generated as geography and economic opportunity collide. As Florida's entrepreneurial ecosystem grows, many are using Synapse to grow their business. Synapse is a groundbreaking methodology that connects all personas within the innovation economy, utilizing a method that enables all users to progress in meeting their given needs while promoting much-needed community engagement. Never more than now has Florida presented opportunity to be better aligned in business, providing huge potential for greater overall results with strong collaboration and holistic leadership. Synapse is a growth synthesis platform that will allow you to take advantage and flourish in ways you never thought possible as an entrepreneur, as a business, and within the context of community, events, connections, publishing, all with Synapse. See for yourself at synapsefl.com. That's synapsefl.com.
Helping your business succeed in today's marketplace. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.
Well, welcome to the fourth segment of the CEO Hour. Again, I'm your host, Dean Akers, bringing you top CEOs and entrepreneurs each week that share their journeys. This week we have Brenda Dohring Hicks, who's sharing her epic journey. And if you're just tuning in, I really encourage you to get our podcast that'll be up on the Adjunct CEO Hour and all the major networks to listen to the first three segments, because they've been epic. Her journey's been epic as to where she falls into today. She's in the real estate appraisal business, and now she makes a real leap, don't you? What brought on the whole software gig?
The software gig. Well, boring. I can't take boring. So I had split with my partner, only because, one of those men that I told you about who came to work for us probably did the best interview I'd ever had with someone in my whole life. And he was pretty honest, and I won't cuss, but he called us the B women on the north end of town. And I said, okay, we got to hire him because he's honest. And so after a few years, we ended up starting to date. And So I split from my partner and started an appraisal company with him as my partner. And that's been 30 years ago.
That's epic.
Yeah. So we've worked together ever since. And so when we split with my partner, we decided that I would move into the downtown Tampa area. So there was a separation between us, and she stayed up in North Tampa. And technology was just coming into place. This was by now into the late 90s, when we had those little green sparkly words and stuff you can see. Well, real estate is very visual.
Right.
It's a whole different thing. You walk through a building, then you write a description of the building. And so the next thing you know, all of a sudden, we were at a point where we could start getting images on our computers, and that blew my mind. What do you mean photos on that screen? So the big thing for real estate is data, knowing how one property is doing and another property is doing. And having that data became challenging to keep track of. So I was enthralled by the technology of pictures. So we hired a programmer and said, I need a database for ourselves so we can make our business better. Out of that, I started thinking, well, how cool, there's a full business model here if everybody can have this data, and how do we produce that data? So we got into the technology piece by building databases. Now, next thing you know, it's .com time, and I'm very involved in the Appraisal Institute. I'm serving on some of their boards. I'm traveling around the country by this point, and I'm hearing lots of this word about how technology is going to change real estate, and I want in. It's fun. I'm not bored anymore, and I'm just learning as much as I can. It's like reading those 5 books every week again and taking in all this information. And I get an opportunity with a partner in California that we're going to build this collaboration software platform. So what the heck is that? Well, a deal room. I don't know if you ever put a real estate deal together, but typically, you know what a deal room looks like, right? Paper stacked up the boardroom table everywhere. So we're going to put all these parties together in an electronic war room. And so we did all that. We raised some venture capital for it. And then the .com bust happened. And the good news was we didn't raise too much money. We raised just enough money that I could control it. It was a friends and family round before we took the big money. And so we were able to retain all of that intellectual rights to the software that we built. My partner didn't really want it. He didn't know what he was going to do with it. We didn't either, so we just kind of put it over on a shelf and let it sit for a while. And went about doing what we were doing. Still making money, still doing the appraisal stuff. But I was so excited about every new gadget, toy, or tech thing that came out, and fortunately for me, I had a lot of friends in the industry, and one of them called me up one day and asked me, hey, that collaboration software stuff that you built and you were going to do all this stuff with it, could that be our appraisal and environmental ordering platform for our bank? I said, I don't know, I guess. And we went under contract with them, did that, built that for them, and it started us on our next line of business. Along the way, we had built smaller platforms for fee appraisers and things, and we probably had 4,000 users of that, but it's a little more tedious, one at a time kind of a sale. So this was our big break into doing something different, and we built the product, negotiated with them to be able to turn it into a real product instead of custom, and we launched what is now our signature product, which is UConnect, and it's a full workflow platform that we sell to financial institutions around the country.
That had to be, though, again, going all the way back to the restaurant, moving down here and stuff. You saw a need.
You definitely saw a need. And what's the funny part when I look back on it? There was no other care other than that. Number one, it was going to be fun. It was going to be exciting. It was feeding me. Number two, at some point, hopefully, it would make us, some good money along the way. But we just kept investing and investing and investing in our own money. We had bought a building that we were occupied in downtown Tampa. We were putting startup companies in there. I was able to feed and hang out in this really exciting kind of world for me. And so I just needed that. And so, we're doing really well now, but there were a lot of years in there where you're just clawing it up. And frankly, so long as I'm learning something and I have a challenge in front of me, I'm okay.
So if there's a listener out there, what's the messages, as we're in the fourth segment, what are some messages that you would want a listener to understand that your journey could help them, parts of your journey would help them?
Just don't think too hard. Just go with what's fun. Be curious. Just always want to be learning something, whether it's about people. My favorite thing about all of it, I talk technology in this, but I really tell people, I don't really care about the technology. I love the people. Just like when I was waiting tables, I love the diners, and so when I can connect people and I can have fun with people and, oh, by the way, give them a tool that they kind of like, that's all it is. It's like the reason that our signature product is called You Connect, because that's it. If you care about other people and you care about their happiness or their success or whatever it is the heck that they want to be doing, and you help them do that, you can't lose.
What a great story. So what a powerful story behind the brand name, the You Connect.
The You Connect.
Yeah. I think that's a message. I don't know if you tell that story, but I think that's a story that would be a brand story for you.
Not a bad idea there, Dean.
No, I mean that is a very, very powerful story. So now where do you go from today, and then also any other tips as we close out for our entrepreneurs and listeners out there that they can learn from this crazy cool journey you've had?
I'll say it again. Just find things that, get you excited, no matter what that is. And if you don't have anything, then go find other people that are excited and ask them, why are they excited? Because it's kind of catching. You and I rode over here and we talked that today's kind of overcast kind of day, and that can have an impact on you. So think about the people you surround yourself with. Don't ever surround yourself with people that bring you down. You don't have time for it. You got to be really strong, because if you're somebody who really likes people, I've caught myself in this trap. Then I want to help them, but they bring me down. I feel like an octopus with everybody hanging off my whatever those octopus arms are. But just keep moving. You know why? Because you're helping people more by feeding off their energy. You're not taking from them. The more you feed off their energy, the more energy they have, and the more that they'll have the guts, if that's what it is, or the desire to go follow their dreams. It's kind of leading by example, maybe.
Well, that's a big message, and I'm going to reframe that don't surround yourself with people that bring you down.
No.
And if you've got the negative Nellies in your life, they're going to keep you on the bottom, aren't they?
Yeah, they will. It's hard enough. It's hard enough because you got to have people that sometimes, I say this about my husband, Jeff. He is a much more steady Eddie kind of guy, and the best thing he does for me is sometimes he throws an anchor out.
Right.
And we all need those anchors, but you only need like one once in a while. You don't need a lot of anchors all the time. Once in a while it's a good thing, but just surround yourself and try to make other people feel your energy, because you get more out of that experience than you're giving.
Well, Brenda, I want to for sure thank you for coming on today, and I got to tell you, this has been an epic show. You've shared things that I personally am taking away, and I'll talk to you when we go offline about it, but this was a great show for me. I want to thank you.
Well, I enjoyed it. I was a little nervous, I must say. I've never done a radio show before, but thank you for the opportunity.
And now I would say I don't ever want to hear that again. Some girl gets in a car and goes, join the circus. You're never going to live that down. Go enjoy. By the way, to all listeners out there, you need to go join the circus. That's Brenda Dohring Hicks. That'll change your life. If you want to be on the road to success, go join the circus. Now, Brenda, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Dean.
Again, this is Dean Akers, and it excites me every week. I'm the most blessed person on the planet to be the host of the CEO Hour. It allows me to bring top CEOs and entrepreneurs each week that share their journeys. And while it's great for you, the listeners, that get to hear it, I got to tell you, it's always especially a treat for me as a host to get to learn it too, because I take so much out of it. And again, this is the host of Dean Akers, the host of CEO Hour. And we look forward to seeing you each week And again, thank you, Brenda.
You're welcome.
See you next week.
Thanks for listening to this CEO Hour with Dean Akers, helping businesses and CEOs succeed in today's marketplace. Receive a free CEO physical when you connect with Dean at deanakers.com. That's deanakers.com. And join us again next week for the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.